So here's Kwarteng speaking earlier to Nick Ferrari, who's also in Birmingham. Remember, I'm drawn to the notion that the tone of this, the delivery of it, even if you welcome the content, the tone and the context have actually seen it make things worse rather than better. But you are, as always on this programme, you are welcome to disagree.
We talk to people, I totally get it, and I thought that it became a huge distraction on what was a good plan. So when we launched the growth plan, we said we're going to reduce taxes, and we reduced the national insurance increase. We reversed that. We brought forward the 1p cut in the basic rate, and we suggested the abolition of the 45p rate. Now, I've seen the reaction. People have expressed their concerns. I've talked to MPs, I've talked to councillors, I've listened to people in the country, and I took the decision that actually this was a huge distraction on what people were saying was there were really good plans.
See, I suggested on Friday that they should read my last book, How Not to Be Wrong, The Art of Changing Your Mind, the first line of which, if memory serves, is something like, there's no point having a mind if you never change it. I think that was on Friday, possibly Thursday. I'm glad they've taken my advice. I'm glad they've changed their mind. But what I also examine in that book is the inability that some people have, people who have usually been to British public schools, men who have been to British public schools. I write chiefly about Eton and Ampleforth in my book because David Cameron and Boris Johnson went to Eton and I went to Ampleforth. But Kwasi Kwarteng fits this model as well because he also went to Eton, albeit a few years behind Johnson and Cameron. And you are trained from a very, very early age. It's the same, the more that the world turns, the more I realise that this is pretty close to a copper-bottomed theory. Because the schools still work on a model, or they did when we were there, I think they've changed now, 30 years later, 35, 40 years later. But they were designed to create people who could go and run the empire. So they were designed to create people who would never admit they were wrong. You can't turn up in the middle of nowhere and start bossing the natives around with a thought in the back of your mind that you might actually be completely wrong, and that if you show the slightest bit of weakness, somebody somewhere might start questioning why the hell you're in charge at all. This is our country. What are you doing here telling us what? So you have to have absolute certainty. Even when somewhere inside you know you're wrong, you have to be able to insist that you're not. That is Boris Johnson's entire personality type. For the rest of us, it's something that we learn at school. And Kwarteng is doing it there, because if you listen to that, and I may play it to you again, he still thinks it's a good idea. He refuses to admit that it was actually stupid, wrong, unfair, crass, obnoxious, any of the above, to offer thousands of pounds to the highest earners in society while potentially making life worse or doing next to nothing to help everybody else. He refuses to contemplate, never mind admit, that it was actually a huge mistake. And that's psychological. That's not political. That is it can be a strength. That never explain, never apologise school of thought in some contexts can be an enormous strength. I don't think you can rise through the ranks of the modern Conservative Party unless you are incapable of admitting mistakes. I think you have to have, post-Brexit at least, you have to have that absolute conviction that reality is wrong and you're right. And here is someone from a secretly funded think tank to agree with me. I honestly believe this. But that is him there proving to you he can't admit it was wrong. The closest he'll come to admitting that it was wrong is saying that it's distracting from all the other brilliant stuff that I did, so we've decided to jettison it. I'm going to play it to you again, and then we'll carry on asking the question of whether this has made things worse or better after the news.
We talk to people, I totally get it, and I thought that it became a huge distraction on what was a good plan.
Distraction, not mistake, you see.
So when we launched the growth plan, we said we're going to reduce taxes, and we reduced the national insurance increase. We reversed that. We brought forward the 1p cut in the basic rate, and we suggested the abolition of the 45p rate. Now, I've seen the reaction. People have expressed their concerns. I've talked to MPs, I've talked to councillors, I've listened to people in the country. And I took the decision that actually this was a huge distraction on what people were saying was there were really good plans.
Not a mistake, not an error, not a disaster, not a humiliation, not even a U-turn, just a